Imagine a teenage girl, barely 17, claiming she was sent by God to lead an army, and actually winning battles. Sounds like a legend? It's not. Her name was Joan of Arc, and her story is one of the most extraordinary in all of history. Born in 1412 in the small village of Domremy in northeastern France, Joan was a peasant girl with no military training, no political connections, and no reason to ever be remembered. Except for one thing. She believed she had been chosen by heaven. At the time, France was being torn apart by the 100 Years' War with England. The French crown was weak, the English occupied large parts of the country, and the heir to the throne, Charles VII, hadn't even been officially crowned. In the middle of this chaos, Joan claimed she heard divine voices, those of Saint Michael, Saint Catherine, and Saint Margaret, urging her to drive out the English and lead Charles to his coronation. At 17, she convinced local authorities to take her to Charles. Skeptical but desperate, he allowed her to lead troops to the besieged city of Orléans. What happened next shocked everyone. Dressed in armor, carrying her own banner, Joan inspired the French forces to a decisive victory. A peasant girl had just turned the tide of the war. By 1429, Joan had led Charles through enemy territory to Reims, where he was crowned king. Her mission, she said, was complete, but her enemies weren't done. In 1430, she was captured by the Burgundians, French allies of the English, and handed over to her enemies. The English, wanting to discredit her and her divine claims, put her on trial for heresy, witchcraft, and cross-dressing for wearing armor. The trial was a sham. Joan, still a teenager, stood her ground with intelligence and dignity. One of the most surprising facts? Her eloquence during the trial stunned her accusers. When asked if she believed she was in God's grace, a trick question meant to trap her, she replied, "If I am not, may God put me there. If I am, may God keep me there." It was a theological answer so sharp that even her judges were speechless. On May 30th, 1431, at just 19 years old, Joan of Arc was burned at the stake in Rouen. She died clutching a cross and crying out the name of Jesus. Joan's story didn't end in flames. 25 years later, her trial was reviewed and overturned, declaring her innocent. In 1920, nearly 500 years after her death, she was canonized as a saint by the Catholic Church. She remains a national heroine of France, a symbol of courage, faith, and resistance. So who was Joan of Arc really? A messenger of God? A political pawn? Or simply a girl brave enough to believe she could change history? And did. Her voice, once silenced by fire, still echoes through time, and perhaps that's why we still tell her story today.